Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Kardec Radio. We're here to nourish our souls. I'm Nora Brazil, the host of this program, Soothing Pills of Trust, based off the book Pills of Trust by Dr. Diaz de Cruz and Andre Moreiras. This book full of medicine for our souls. So important, right? What a wonderful gift. Speaking of the holidays, right? Being in the spirit, we are always in that spirit because God is so merciful. He's every day, every minute, every second, giving us blessings, clues, tools, resources, ways, and etc. for us to move forward, to learn, to grow. We fall, we pick ourselves right back up, friends. So what a beautiful, beautiful way to lead our lives, right? It makes such a huge difference when we hold on to these beautiful teachings and we use them. It makes a whole lot of difference. So thank you guys and the spirits and all the mentors and guides for always being there by our sides, providing exactly what we are needing. We are so grateful that we are able to make it. It's Thursday. It's a beautiful day. Everybody is just getting ready to get to that point of the year, friends, where we are just, let's breathe, right? Some of us have a practice to evaluate and examine the things of this year. And this year has been unlike any other. Or maybe some of us never even thought a year ago that we would be here today, but we did it, we made it, and we are here. So what a great way to continue living, and just expressing gratitude, right? To nourish our souls, coming to Kardec Radio and finding other inspirational videos. So we want to say thanks to the spirits for us to have the resources, and not only that, for us to be at that level of understanding that we are able to intake all those lessons. So what a great way to continue receiving all of these gifts. So with that said, let's set our intentions. Let's say a quick prayer, and then we just start for today because we have a very special treat. Dear Mother, Father, God, Creator, thank you so much for this opportunity to be here, to study, to reunite, to be able to examine ourselves internally and receive lessons, reminders, boosts, waves, healings, light, and so forth that we are needing for today. We ask that the spirits enlighten us and open up our minds and hearts to intake what is needed. That said, we ask permission to begin this meeting. All right, friends. So let's begin. We are on chapter 25. And chapter 25 is Everything Passes. So today we are going to create a recipe. So before we create a recipe, let's read the chapter and let's intake it, and let's our minds and our hearts do everything, and then we go into a recipe that the spirits are creating for us, right? To keep in this theme of the holiday spirit. Today we are going to create spiritual Christmas butter cookies. So let's begin to read. Everything passes. Trust at your destiny and understand that no one will be burdened with infinite suffering and pains. Difficulties on your paths are service stations for moral apprenticeship until the cycle of learning comes to a complex end within the fields of one's heart. Here in the fields of the heart, one is provided with an awakening of new, joyful, and peaceful realities. In times of drought, it is required and essential to seek courage to nourish ourselves with the sustaining process that life offers us, and this will deepen our roots in search of nourishment for our soul. In times of abundance, the nourishment available allows for us to plentifully share what is given to us in a productive manner. If today there is a drought, in contention, surrender with love, and tomorrow there will be an abundant harvest at the planting beds with verdant foretelling the coming of days of joy and abundance. Thus, when we experience either drought or abundance, with attention and vigilance, everything passes. So everything will pass. So let's break this down, friends, and create our recipe, because really, what a great way as we are going through a situation. Let's remind ourselves that everything passes, and that if needed, as needed, right, we can always obtain spiritual recipes to nourish our souls. Let me share my screen. All right, friends, so here we have our little baker chef, just to remind us that chapter 25's title is Everything Passes, right? So imagine ourselves going to a class today on how to create and how to make, right, some spiritual Christmas butter cookies, right? So as we are learning the recipes and intaking that, right, in the beginning, it might be a practice that we need, but then eventually we get it and we definitely can have a good batch of cookies. And I remember my first time even baking, friends, it was not good. Right? But then with practice, right, just like any recipe, whether it be baking or whether it be in the kitchen, right, we get better. And what best way than to spend time these holidays baking cookies with our families or making Christmas meals at home, social distancing, staying safe, right? So this is great because not only can we talk about some actual recipes, but at the same time, we are literally nourishing ourselves. So when we think about actually making the cookies, right, we have to find the ingredients, right? And it's always so interesting to think what is kind of like the science behind ingredients. And of course, friends, this is not actually a class on this, but just quickly, we do know that in this particular recipe for butter cookies, we would need flour, butter, sugar, eggs, baking powder, and vanilla extract, right? And every single ingredient has a measurement that needs to be inputted, and there's a specific way to assemble it, right? But before we get to that place, right, let's think about what is happening. And so we have the flour that kind of becomes the foundation of everything. The butter holds everything, right? It holds the well, in this case, the cookie, it's going to hold it together. The sugar is going to add some sweetness to it. The eggs add the texture to the cookies. The baking powder is going to help it rise. And of course, the vanilla extract is just a very specific flavor that's going to add to our cookies, right? And so here we have this visual. And each ingredient on its own, they have a very specific function. They do serve, right? And we can taste each of these ingredients, and we have a feel for them. But the beauty of creating recipes and forth is that we are actually going through like a chemical reaction through it. We're pretty much combining all of these ingredients and making them into something else. So in this book here, these are now the ingredients of the soul, right? So Dr. Diaz de Cruz gives us these here, which are trust, to trust, right? To understand, nourish, surrender, be vigilant, and seek. So these are all the ingredients that we found when we read the text, right? Notice, friends, how all of these are verbs, they're actions, because we want to make sure that as we are making this cookie, right, in a soul analogy, we want to make sure that these are ingredients in action. So if we can even go even further, could we perhaps, right, compare it to an actual the actual recipe? Yes, actually we can. And I know this could be kind of, we might have to agree to disagree. You might say, well, I think this ingredient might go with that, and that's great, friends. This is just something very quick for us to sort of put into perspective, to think the trust is like the flour that we're going to use as we're building this cookie, right? The trust is really a huge foundation. And if anything, this book is the foundation, right, of everything. So if we're going to be making this cookie, we really want to make sure we have the flour that is equivalent to trust. The butter in this case would be like to understand, right? Because the butter holds things together. So in this ingredient, to understand or understanding, when something happens, right, we understand, we hold it together. The third ingredient, sugar, could be matched or paired to nourish, right? The sugar brings in that sweetness. And when we are nourishing ourselves, we are adding a sort of sweetness to our spiritual palate, right? The eggs, which add the texture, can match up to surrender, right? Because there's this beautiful chemistry that can happen when we surrender. If we just do it peacefully in harmony, we tend to have like a good texture, we can say, in this analogy, in our lives. Like things just sort of sink in, right? We're not trying too much, too hard, or too little. It's just a good balance. And when we have a good balance of surrender, right, it just makes things flow a lot easier for us, friends. We have the baking powder, which we know it helps rise. And interestingly, friends, I was looking this up, that if we add too much or too little, it actually affects the recipe, right? We don't think about this, and we think about being vigilant. And you're right. If we are too little, right, or vigilant, we're not vigilant enough, rather, we can miss things that happen. But sometimes when we become too much of it, we might lose sense of becoming so analytical that we forget to do this, operate in the place of the heart. So again, this ingredient is about the balance of having it, right? And the vanilla extract as a flavor could be equivalent to our soul ingredient, to seek, right? Because when we seek something in our particular experience, it is a very particular flavor, we can say, that we need for whatever circumstance it has. And we can see the powerful dynamic that these spiritual ingredients of trust, to understand, nourish, surrender, be vigilant, and seek have on their own. Just like we know the potential of the other ingredients. But the beauty of it, friends, now is like, God is like, let's step it up a little bit. Now let's start to combine these ingredients and let's make sense of them and follow some directions. And if we follow that direction, we follow that path, we might be up to something, right? And so in the actual recipe, friends, for some of us that are curious, and the websites are here on the bottom from where I got the recipe, right? The first thing that we need to do is we have to combine the ingredients and make the dough. And it's not just all together, right? It's one thing and then the other, and it has to sort of hold together and have, the dough needs to be a certain consistency. And then we wrap it up in a plastic, we refrigerate it for approximately up to an hour. We get it out, extend it, right? And then we get our little cookie cutters. So this is a fun time, friends. We get the Christmas tree, the angel, the bells, the reindeer, hearts, Santa Claus, right? This is so cute. I can see us in a spiritual kitchen too, just being together in this community. And I got this cookie cutter. We just start to create, cut out the dough in as many cookies as we can. And then we got to get the cookie sheets, and we need to bake it. So we have to make sure that the oven is at a certain temperature, and we have to put the cookies, place them about, an inch apart from each other so they have space to expand. Bake for about 10-12 minutes, depending on the settings of our ovens. And then we let the cookies cool down. And after they're cooled down, then we decorate. The secret from so many shows, friends, that are on Netflix, Amazon Prime, that, there's so many contestants. It's really to follow these directions, to understand the science behind all of this, and everything will with practice will come out as we want it to. Like, when we see the pictures in the magazines or on a webpage, oh, I want to make this cookie, right? And interestingly, now let's look over here. It says here, it's important that we understand that this is a chemical reaction that's happening, right? So we know that every ingredient will never go back to the way it was. In essence, we need to make sure that we read the recipe from beginning to end. We need to have our ingredients ready. If it says room temperature, friends, room temperature, follow those measurements. Make sure our oven door is closed, and let's try to do one batch at a time. I was actually reading, if we try to put all the cookies at once, or too many, the heat is not going to go through. So just one batch at a time, take it easy, right? And there's a reason why we are going through this, because in the spiritual perspective of this, we do have spiritual directions all the time, right? These coming from, God, from the mentors, from our spirit guides, all those messages, follow, right? And if we create this discipline in ourselves to follow these recipes, to understand the work that needs to be done, the patience, right? We always look at a cookie that's decorated, but behind that there was a process that took time. And it's the same thing for us, spiritually speaking, right? In the text, I want to point out this beautiful sentence here that says, thus, when we experience either drought or abundance with attention and vigilance, everything passes. So in a spiritual perspective, right, this word experience in itself is already like the direction, because we are created by God, we are part of Him, and we are aligned with that. So for us, when we think of the word experience, it's a very innate feeling that we have, and we know that every experience in itself is going to expand, it's going to help us grow, right? And interestingly, it talks about drought and abundance. So a lot of the times, this concept of it will pass, right? We always think, well, it's a nice concept when it's a time of drought, when things are not going our way, right? And He says to keep on going. Oh, it will pass. But friends, when we are also reach a place where of abundance, where it was a good place, it will also pass. And Dr. Diaz de Cruz here is reminding us that we need to share, right? So think about this. It's a lot easier if we're working on a cookie batch and it didn't come out good. Okay, that's fine, right? You're going to keep on trying. But imagine, friends, if we create all these delicious Christmas butter cookies and then we keep them to ourselves, the potential of them spoiling is there, right? We made the cookies for us to share. And in the spiritual concept too, we learn these experiences, and then we become helpers, we become workers of the good. And there's so many ways to reach out to others, right? To be a biggest one that we learn from Jesus in all His teachings, right? In all the lessons, is to be the role model. He was a great role model. A lot of the times it's really, we're looking at His behaviors, His reactions, and that's how we've been learning, right? And so it's the same thing, right? Let's pass on these spiritual butter cookies and share on the good news, because it's great to be workers of the good. It's great to be have access to this knowledge for us, right? So the key things to remember, friends, about our spiritual directions as we are making the dough and putting everything in the oven and out, is to acknowledge the word experience and to trust that thing, because we were created by God, we know we have that internal feel about what experience means and where it's going to take us in a situation, right? We need to keep in mind that that part of our evolution is almost, in a sense, we move from separate spiritual ingredients to learning to combine recipes, which can create something even better, right? So now we're talking about a different kind of understanding that it will pass. I'm holding on to something, right? and to remember that these spiritual chemical reactions, in essence, is almost like what the spirits in the spirits book say, right? Talking about reincarnation, right? Because we can never get the flour back to its original state. We can never get the butter back. Once it's baked, it's baked. And for us too, once we've been exposed to an experience, right, that knowledge, it stays, it doesn't go back. We've had like a spiritual chemical reaction. It's a positive thing. There's growth. So it's so interesting for us to blend in these ideas and think about it as we are creating our spiritual Christmas butter cookies. All right. So then the fun part, which is the decorations, right? Oh, that is always fun, friends. I remember I was helping a friend make some cookies, and I participated in the decoration, and it was so much fun. But prior to this, yes, helping my friend with the process and realizing that it took a lot of work, but it was worth it when we got to the decoration part, because this is about being creative, and creativity is just amazing. This is who we are, right? And so some of the things as we are decorating, right, that we need to keep in mind are the details, the texture, the shapes. Might use sprinkles, what decorations, what kind of sugar, cinnamon, and so forth, right? There's so much. The colors and everything is so beautiful for us to be in that understanding that in an actual cookie we have to do this, but in a spiritual way we can also be hopeful and know that even though we went through this process, right, when it comes to decorations, it's really about fun. Here, Dr. Diaz de Cruz has this sentence. It says, here in the fields of the heart, one is provided with an awakening of new, joyful, and peaceful realities, right? So that awakening, knowing what, the end, with the end in mind, you can say, right? We already know what's coming. It's going to be okay. It's like, okay, I'm going to decorate my cookie, right? And he keeps reminding us these words: love, abundance, and joy. Oh, that's right. Some of these cookies I've seen that are like very minimalist. They write the word love, abundance, joy. Some people will express love by the use of colors and sprinkles and so forth. Isn't it amazing to have all of this diversity? And imagine this in a spiritual perspective, all the spiritual diversity that there is to decorate these spiritual cookies, right? And so it's so important for us and to think about when we go to a gathering, right? We look at everything. Let's make our cookies joyful. I mean, unless we're doing the Mr. Grinch theme, right? We might make them. But even like that, friends, right? We've seen some Mr. Grinch cookies that are super cute, but most of the idea is that they're delightful, that they're bright. And so think about this in the sense of us ourselves in our lives as we are designing and decorating the process. At the end, it's a cookie. How do we want to come across, right? How is it that we want to express ourselves? That's right. Let's make a very delicious cosmetic looking kind of good bright piece of batch of cookies, and imagine, and that takes a lot of work and effort, but it will be worth it because we get to share the good news, right? As the spirits ourselves, we are here to help each other, to be of service of others. So now let's finish up this recipe and remember that having a recipe during a difficult time can really help us cope. It really can, right? It helps us cope, understanding, okay, I know I'm going through this. I remembered that when I went through a similar experience, I did this and this. We make a recipe and boom, right? Isn't that great? And interestingly, friends, the best thing of all of this is that our divine ingredients are always at our reach. Endless, right? As we've also read in this book, God is an endless spring of abundance. So we always have whatever ingredients we need at our reach for us, right? And in this case, to remember that this chapter presented to us these: to trust, understand, seek, nourish, surrender, and be vigilant, right? So as we combine these, we create these delicious butter cookies, right? But there's so many other things out there for us to get inspired, right? And how do we do this? We ask, we pray, we meditate, we look for inspiration to create a recipe that works well under a particular situation, right? Every situation is different and unique, and so we have to be flexible and we have to be adaptable. But when we use our creativity, in essence, we start to work from our hearts, right? And we are in this heart coherence. Everything just aligns itself to God, and just have joy. When we have joy, baking, what a great way. So friends, whenever we are going through a situation, let's remember everything passes. I have a great cookie recipe, and if anything, I will make the cookies, and that in itself already brings joy, and it actually raises our frequencies. Isn't that great? All right, dear friends, so this is the lesson for today. We are going to sing a Christmas song. Let me stop sharing the slides. All right, friends, let's sing Jingle Bells. Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh, o'er the fields we go, laughing all the way, bells above till ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh, jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, próspero año y felicidad. Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, próspero año y felicidad. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas from the bottom of my heart. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas from the bottom of my heart. All right, friends. Now, Merry Christmas. Let's say our prayer. Stay in the spirit all week. Joyful, grateful, and just so holly and jolly. Dear Mother, Father, God, spirits, mentors, thank you so much for this beautiful lesson. May we be spreading the good news, finding recipes that we need for our souls as we continue growing and expanding. We ask for protection and for a spirit of Christmas to continue. That we end as permission to end this meeting, and so be it, friends. There's so many programs. Please tune in to Kardec Radio. Many blessings. Until next week. God bless. Bye.